Today, we're diving into just mastering the initial family conversations with families. So, we're going to be talking about the first conversation and the importance of a second conversation. So, we get to work with a lot of companies here at Parting Pro that are in different stages of their growth as a company. Some have been around for a long time, some are just starting out. But the one thing that we see that drives the business growth in the industry, regardless of the age of the company, is how the staff deals with phone calls. So that's why we chose to talk about this today, because it is probably the number one important thing when we're talking about growth and people wanting to gain business is those phone calls. So I remember when I was a new director, I was on the phone call. I was on call one evening. I was at home, took a call from a price shopper. My husband was sitting in the room. He could hear everything I said. And after I got off the call, he said something that I still remember to this day. He said, "It sounds like you could have said that spiel in your sleep." Um, and it's because I was in robot mode. I was just giving the information, right? This is the price for a direct cremation. This is this, this is this. And you say it so many times a day that it like is this like rote memorization that just comes across very robotic as well. So today we're going to dive into why that doesn't work and give you some things to use instead so that we don't get stuck into that robot mode and we can actually be effective with our calls. So to kind of give you an overview of what we're going to be doing today, we're first going to be talking about why the phone skills matter at all. We're going to go over common mistakes and what to do instead. We're going to talk about that second conversation, why that's a must. And then also just want everybody to keep in mind, this is not a lecture. This is a coaching AMA. So if you've got questions, you want to engage in the conversation, you are welcome to do that. We'll have time at the end for open Q&A where we can go over lots of questions. Feel free and use the chat to put your questions in the chat, and we'll be able to get to as many as we can. Hopefully, all of them. But we're going to go ahead and just jump in here. So the first conversation, this is that first time the family calls you. It is usually about pricing, and we're going to talk about the power of connection and why this first conversation is so important. So like I said, the first conversation is often around price. It's really easy to just jump in and giving facts and figures. So, giving that price and asking just, do you want a direct cremation only? Going directly into that, we just miss an important opportunity to connect with the person on the other line and kind of get to the heart of what their questions are. So naturally at this stage in their process, the questions are going to be about process. They're going to be about pricing. But what they're actually asking you when they're calling you as a funeral home is they're looking for somebody to give them guidance for the situation that's unfamiliar to them. A lot of people have to plan for the deaths of loved ones very seldomly in their life. And it's usually something they only have to do a handful of times, hopefully, even that often. So they're not familiar with this. So what they're really asking is when they're asking those questions about pricing, when they're asking those questions about processes, what they're really asking is, can I trust this business to handle my loved one? Is this person guiding me and handling me with care? And are they going to handle my loved one with care? So this is our opportunity to direct the family. I always think of it as putting your director hat on. Even if you're not a funeral director, you're an admin, you're a receptionist, whatever you are in the funeral home, when you're taking that phone call, you are a director at that point. So you need to direct that call, kind of take control of the call, build trust. And this is your real opportunity to establish that lasting rapport. So I'm sure, because we've been in funeral homes, we've all experienced things when a phone call situation gets off on the wrong foot and how hard and daunting that can be to correct that. So I've had situations where just things got off on the wrong foot and the entire arrangement, all the way until the family came to pick up their cremated remains, just was sideways. Everything was off. There was just a frustration in the air. So it's really hard to correct those things once they get off track. Sometimes impossible. Um,
Amen. Yeah.
and we can also, I bet everybody could think of a situation where they had one go really well, where we had that first conversation with the family. There was a connection, there was something that clicked. You just made a connection with that family and things became easy after that. So the goal today is for you to kind of walk away with a formula to how to create that connection and deal with those first conversations with the family. Okay. Andrea or Gian, did you guys have anything to add to that?
I just want to piggyback on what you were saying that a lot of times, when we work in the funeral industry and the shopper is asking certain questions, sometimes we can forget that they are still needing guidance. They're still needing education. Sometimes they're coming to us already with information that maybe they think they know because they talked to three other funeral homes that may not work
Mhm.
anything like how your funeral home works. So just don't pass up the opportunity to just educate them and reframe and reset some of their expectations.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Um, so before we dive deeper into this conversation, I do want to just talk about the intentional use of words and what we refer to as the language of care. So choosing the right words, especially early on, that can either build trust or it can create distance. Now, being in the industry, I know that we talk about these terms all day and they're just second nature to us, but something as simple as the word decedent, that's not a common word that we use in our everyday language outside of the funeral industry. Um, so even though it seems simple, it is, if we can say loved one instead of decedent, we're getting closer to having that empathy and compassion for the family and really respecting the relationship that they've had with that loved one rather than saying decedent, which feels very transactional. So this is what I mean about the language of care, honoring the emotional weight of the moment. Even though we're not personally connected to that family, we can still use language that's going to honor that family and that relationship. So I realize that online direct cremation providers are many of the customers that Parting Pro helps. And it's very easy to slip into a impersonal kinds of hands-off model when you are a direct cremation, especially online provider. But I would argue that that makes your phone skills even more important because these customers may not ever meet you face to face. So our words become your strongest tool for connection. Um, and in fact, I think probably all of our client success managers here would tell you that the most successful companies that we work with handle their phones extremely well. They're masters at being able to convey warmth and be able to get that connection. And so I do see the, what if the mom or dad in the chat? And I think that's fine too, if somebody wants to refer to mom. So I think this is just a personality thing. And this is the way I always looked at it. For some reason, that's uncomfortable to me, but that doesn't mean it's wrong, right? So some people are very, loving and what does mom do and things like that. And that's great. I think it's whatever feels comfortable for you, as long as we're not using that clinical terminology. If you were saying, your mother or you're saying mom, that's whatever's like comfortable for you. But I think the importance is that we're just not using those clinical terms. So absolutely. Yeah. Whatever is good. And I think that's the point, is that people feel that from you. They're going to feel if you're genuine or if you're being very transactional. And so, yes, absolutely use the language it's comfortable for you. So yeah. So when we talk about the loved one versus the decedent, a couple other things that I think come up often are when we say we're going to take somebody into our care, instead of they're going to stay with us in storage. I've heard that said before, which that people, I think when we're in the industry, we know we have the context right for what storage looks like to us, but when we say these words to people who have zero context for it, they imagine the absolute worst. And so if you have zero context for that and you're saying they're going to put my mom in storage, that's really bad. We want to be able to give them that visual that their loved one is really being cared for. And it's the same thing when we say transfer versus remove. Transfer is just a softer way. We're saying the same thing, but if we can say we're going to transfer your loved one into our care versus we're coming out to remove your loved one from the place of death, it's just a softer way to say it. We're saying the same thing, but you're just reinforcing trust that your role is as a caregiver, because we are providing services here. We're funeral home staff. We are dealing with very sensitive matters for people. And so we want to be able to convey that in our language that we're using in talking to families. So we will refer to language of care throughout this discussion. And so I just wanted to give the context for kind of what that definition is. Okay.
There was a question that came through from
Okay.
Emily. It says, how can I
Yes.
explain the process without storage? Many of our clients ask where their loved one will be while they're filling out the documents. One of the things I would say is we have them in a temperature controlled place, which is true. And that just kind of gives them, and I will sometimes say temperature controlled place where they will be comfortable. I almost talk about them as if they're still alive in a sense,
Mhm.
because that's how they're perceived by their family, as being still with them. So I would use words like that. I wouldn't use refrigerator. I've seen that and
Yeah.
heard that the loved one is being placed in a refrigerator. Now for us, we know what that is, the reefer. But
Mhm.
for the family, they think that we're opening up a Kenmore and then there's grandma. And that's not the case. So those are ones that we would have. And then Barry
Yeah.
also, yeah, said climate controlled. That's a
Mhm.
great word as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Thank
they'd
you.
be in a climate controlled area until the cremation takes place or until the services take place. And I'm sorry, somebody else started to say something, so go ahead.
Barry, of course, with his sense of humor, he says that he tells people that they're going to be his roommate because he lives at the funeral. He lives at the funeral home. So,
Yeah, gotcha. Did somebody else start to say something or have anything
no, I
else?
think somebody was thinking, but Emily, that was a great
Okay.
question.
Okay, perfect. Yes, great questions. And we would love to get everybody's feedback and best practices here too, because we're really here just to share our ideas and figure out how to get through this process as funeral directors and staff here. So yes, keep asking those great questions. So let's dive into kind of building trust from that very first call. So all of this starts with genuine empathy, and we're going to probably come back to that word several times, is just being genuine. And you got to be genuine, like again I said, to your own personality and what sounds natural coming from you. And even though we talk to grieving families every single day, the person on the phone shouldn't feel like they're just another family. Oh, they probably just got off the phone with somebody else and said the same thing. We don't want to give that feeling to people. So we can begin by just acknowledging their loss. It doesn't have to be overboard. It can be something very simple, as just say, I'm sorry for what you're going through. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry that this has happened. Just something simple. Again, this is going to come from your personality. So if you are a person that's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that this has happened, that's okay, as long as it feels genuine for you. Or if you want to offer condolences, I know people feel differently about offering condolences for somebody that they didn't know. But if that again feels natural to you, that's an okay thing to do as well. As long as I think it feels genuine for you and it's coming from a real place. And then once we can acknowledge things, we can shift kind of into listening mode and uncover the real needs. So a lot of families right off the bat are just going to say, I just want a simple cremation. They're saying that because they don't have the full picture. They don't have all the context yet, right? I think of it like me, if I have to get a car repair done, I know what a transmission is in the sense that I've heard the word and I know it's part of an engine, but do I have any idea what it does on my engine or how much it would cost to get repaired or how long I should expect my car to be at the shop to get that done? I have no idea, but I know a transmission is part of my engine, just like families know a cremation is something that gets done. But they're missing the entire picture, meaning that, viewing is an option, memorials are an option, all of that information. So it's our job to kind of create that context by asking the questions before we're just diving into price. So an example of this is just delaying the pricing for a moment while, if a family says we want a cremation, okay, be happy to get you that information. Has your family had a chance to say goodbye yet? Now that's a very simple question. It's not a salesy question. It's not a pushy question. It's giving them the opportunity to think about, have they had the chance to say goodbye? And is that something that they want to do? So we're just opening the discussion, right? I know that the funeral world can have a bad rap for being salesy, and we, I think, feel that maybe with the pressure of the FTC, and we have to give prices and we have to make sure we're doing everything. But we can still make things conversational and ask these questions. You're gonna give them the prices, right? You're not holding the prices from them, but you're wanting to get the information to give the correct prices for them. So by saying something, has your family had a chance to say goodbye? And they can walk through that door. They can say, no, we're good. We just want the cremation. Okay, great. So our cremation includes the removal. It includes this. You're going to list all of the things that it includes before you tell them that price. Because once you say that price, that's all they hear. But if you can tell them all the things that that includes before, so it's going to include us transporting your loved one into our, transporting your loved one from the place of death. It's going to include us filing the death certificates. We're going to file the permits for you. We are going to include the cremation container that's required by law. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. You can probably list out in a direct cremation package 5, 6, 7 things that are included in that price, even though it's a direct cremation, before you give that price, because then you're telling them all the value that they're getting for that price before leading with the price. Because I guarantee if the family's calling around for prices, that's what they're looking for, is that price. And if everybody says it's $9.95, it's $10.95, it's $8.95, and they're not hearing really what's all included, they're not getting a full picture of how to evaluate those. But if we can be calm on the phone, if we can build the context, if we can give the value before the price, you're already ahead of the game. Andrea or Jeanne, did you have anything to add? I don't want to leave you guys out of the conversation, so I'm
Nope, you're covering all the
okay.
bases for
Okay.
me.
Okay. All right. Feel free and chime in at any point if you do.
I was just going to add a lot of the price shopper and families that do call, we assume funeral directors or staff members, they might assume things. So we always want to come into the call thinking that it's their first death experience. And from there, you can just kind of gauge like what type of information they would need for that first death call.
For sure. Yeah, I think always assuming that they know nothing is probably the best way to go. They'll tell you if they know more, that will quickly come out. But I think that's spot on. So now that we've gone over a couple of questions, how to build empathy, the language of care, we'll get into a couple do's and don'ts. And this is where we can like hear also what works well for you all. Because Parting Pro does some marketing too, our marketing department gets to listen in on a lot of calls so we can see how things are going. And so listening in on calls, I think people might be surprised how many don't actually say who they've called. So instead of saying like, thank you for calling, my name is Ashley, who am I speaking with? That doesn't always happen. It sounds pretty basic, but you do want to do that because you're setting that stage of you're giving your personal name and you're asking who you're speaking with. So you're already trying to make this personal connection with who am I speaking with, rather than just getting into, again, information, facts and figures. The key is we'll get to the facts and figures, but we want to build a little connection before we do that. So I think it's always best practice to state at least your name. The business name is okay too. And then, answering or asking some other questions. So would you like to talk about a time or place to honor your loved one before the cremation? That's another way to say, have you had a chance to say goodbye? Are they wanting additional services? Again, this isn't a pushy question. It's not, and it's not framed in a way to say, are you going to honor your loved one before the cremation with a viewing? Right? That sounds very different. Like there's something wrong if they don't do it. Would you like to talk about a time or place to honor your loved one before the cremation? That's more of an open-ended question with no judgment in it. And that's a simple, actually, yes, I would. Or you know what, we said goodbye at the hospital. We just going to move forward with the cremation. Okay. But we've opened the conversation, you see. So some of our don'ts here are don't jump straight to pricing without the context. Don't just give that number again without giving all the context for what's there. Where again, when we do that, we're not building any rapport. It feels like they're just another number or another case. And then the other thing that I think is really important is that we don't end the call without a clear next step or a follow-up plan. So even for a price shopper, right? Because the goal of a price shopper is that we take the burden off of them to do the legwork. So that's really why Parting Pro exists. You know, it's an online store for families to be able to see prices and things. So by not taking a moment to get a next step, get an email address, get a phone number, we're putting the burden back on them. We also hear a lot of calls that a family will call and say they're looking for information, and the answer is you can get that from our website. Well, what you've done is you just put another stepping stone in front of that family. So that's the family now has to step over another stepping stone to get the information that they want, instead of the person on the other end saying, what's your email address? And I'm gonna get you an email in just a moment that has all of that information for you. So remember, where as people are calling around for prices, we're also trying to earn their business, right? We are wanting the business at our funeral home, and we're wanting to be able to take care of that family. So in order to do that, we need to take the obstacles out of their way. Andrea or Jan, did you have anything to add? Okay.
No, I'm okay.
Okay. All right, so we'll go over a couple of common mistakes now that we've gone over some kind of do's and don'ts. And we've probably covered these a little bit in our conversation already, but we'll just kind of summarize. So the most common mistakes we probably see is rushing to give those prices without understanding the context. Treating every call as it's a transaction, so slipping back into that robot mode. And believe me, I know it's when you have the same conversation multiple times a day, it's hard to not get into that robot mode. And this is our price, and this is how it works, and doing this. But if we can find a way to be present in that moment and have the conversation with the family and remember that this is their first experience, I promise it'll pay off. Gian and Andrea did a call, a kind of an example of this call to show how things can go a little bit different. So we'll listen to that. And then Carolyn, I'm seeing your comment here. Do you find that sometimes trying to gather that type of information from the family at the end of a call feels salesy or intrusive? I would say I see where you're coming from. I think we could do it actually at the beginning of the call, before we give out all the information, and actually say that it's a way for us to get that information to them. So asking, you know, even as soon as we answer the phone and say, Parting Pro Funeral Home, this is Ashley, how may I help you? Hi, I'm calling about my daughter. Okay, what's your name? Susan. Okay, Susan. What's your daughter's name? Getting that information, and just leading the conversation there. So you're actually getting that personal information up front before you're giving information. The other thing that stuck out to me on the call that we just listened to was that funeral director did not assume they were going to use her. I don't know if you guys picked up on that, but it was like a funeral home, the funeral home that you choose is going to do this and that and that. We want to assume they're using us, right? And it doesn't have to be in a salesy, again, in a pushy way, but when we take your daughter into our care, this is what we will do. You're building that connection and you're building that trust right off the bat that they are going to trust you with their daughter. Their loved one, whoever that is. So I think we should lean into the conversation that way, of we're going to assume that we are taking care of their loved one. Again, not in a pushy way. And I think you'll see on this next call an example of that. But that's really good question, Carolyn. And we can talk about this after this next one too. So again, this next call is about 3 minutes long. It's our team kind of reenacting the call that we just heard to give a different example of that. Okay.
Parting Pro Funeral Home, Andrea speaking. How may I assist you?
Yes, I'm trying to find out and gather some information for my daughter who passed away yesterday, and I have to figure this out now.
Oh, I'm so incredibly sorry to hear about your loss. Where's your daughter now?
She's at the chief medical office.
And just so I can ensure that I can provide you with all of the necessary details, could you please go ahead and spell out your name and contact number for me?
Yes, my name is Gianne, Gianne. My phone number is
Thank you, Jan. And what's the best email address that I can reach you at?
Gianne at,
So you mentioned that your daughter is at the chief medical examiner's office. Is that correct?
yes.
Do you know if she's available now to bring into our care?
Yes, but I just need to know the cost and how everything will happen.
Well, we do have a really straightforward approach to our cremation. It does include a respectful transportation of your daughter from the medical examiner to our crematory, the complete handling and filing of all necessary paperwork, and the dignified return of her ashes to you. We can do all of this for just $950. I do want to let you know that our crematory is only 15 minutes away from the medical examiner's office, but I know you have a lot on your plate, so we are fully equipped to allow you to handle the arrangements from the comfort and privacy of your own home as well.
All right. And who's going to be with her body then? What happens after?
Well, once I get you to sign the necessary release form that I will go ahead and email to you, we can then bring your daughter into our care. After we work on all of the paperwork that's required, we will proceed with the cremation. I just want you to be assured that your daughter will be with our designated care team from the moment we respectfully bring her into our care from the medical examiner's office. And she will remain with our team until her ashes are respectively returned to you.
Okay, what is this phone number again that I'm calling? I just got somebody else who's also calling through, so I might need to hang up.
Again, my name is Andrea. I'm with Parting Pro Funeral Home. And since I have your email, Jan, thank you for giving that to me. I'll go ahead and send you everything you need to make the arrangements. And I'll have all of my contact information so you can get in touch with me if you have any questions. Again, I'm here to help in any way that I can.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. So we can go ahead and launch the same questions and we can review that for this call and see how we compare. And again, I want to like emphasize through all this that it's not about being perfect, right? We don't have to say the perfect thing every time. Everybody is busy. We all work in offices where there's a lot going on. There's people walking in the door. There's, coworkers that need things. There's phones that are ringing. So it's not about being perfect every single time. It's just about showing up for that family and trying to build that connection. Um, so if anybody wants to share or put in the chat what they think maybe worked on that second call that didn't work on the first call, we can review some of that. Most of these answers are coming in that yes, the caller did acknowledge, they dug deeper, they used caring words, they captured the details, and they planned the next steps. So Carolyn,
Ashley,
your question. Yeah, go ahead.
oh, I wanted to point out on the question that Carolyn had about
Mhm.
trying not to feel intrusive. I do
Yeah.
think that perception or concern that we have as funeral staff is because we talk to so many people throughout the day. Remember that family member, you could be the first person that they ever talk to about this. So what you might consider salesy because you're just going through this again, that may be their first time hearing it. So I don't know if we have to be too concerned about sounding salesy because again, focus on the fact that you're educating that person. You're not necessarily trying to get them to spend more money. You're trying to make them aware of what options they have. So if feeling salesy is uncomfortable, just put yourself in the frame of mind. I'm trying to educate my family. I'm trying to educate my caller, and that might feel more comfortable for you.
Um, yeah, I think that's great, Andrea. I think too, like if we look at it as a conversation with, somebody that we know, a coworker, something like that, and if they've experienced something, what would you want them to know? You're kind of giving that to your caller to what information would I want this person to know if this is their first time dealing with this and they're coming to me for help. I think it is a little bit of reframing. And again, because of the repetition of the business, it takes effort to get there. But I think what the biggest difference is for those calls was that in the second call, that person who was acting as a director directed the call. Like, I use that word director deliberately because as funeral directors, part of that job is to direct people, right? We're to guide people, we're to direct them. So directing the conversation where you know it needs to go is what we need to do. And again, it doesn't have to be in a pushy way, it doesn't have to be in a salesy way. But you can see Andrea said on the call, I can't remember exactly what she said about being able to make those arrangements from the comfort of her home. So we didn't even open the door for that family to come in and make an appointment, right? Because that's not our setup, maybe. So there's a way to do that kindly and gently without being pushy, and still directing them, right? She guided them exactly where they needed to go, which is to make online arrangements, because that's what we're doing, if that's the business model. So
Ashley,
it's,
Barry,
yeah.
he said that does offer families the option of making arrangements in the comfort of their home, but they tend to respond that they don't have computers.
Got you.
This does happen. And part of
Yeah.
the reason why people will say this is they think that it's going to be more work. So, one of the things that you can do if you feel comfortable, Barry, is say, let me go ahead and get a vitals over to you, and then I'll be with you to help you complete that vitals. I find it in my experience when they see how easy it is to complete that vitals with your help, they are okay staying at home. It is very, very rare, I will find, that someone in 2025 does not have a computer. So a lot of times when people are saying that, they're trying to stall because they assume that this is going to be a headache for them. So this can be an opportunity for you just to push a little bit more and say, I'm going to go ahead and send you the vitals. I'm going to call you back in 2 minutes. Let's go through this together on the phone. Then you find out suddenly they have a computer, suddenly out there on their smartphone. So you can kind of push a little bit. Now, if someone says immediately, I have really bad eyesight or something like that, then you probably need to help that person in house. But in my experience, it wasn't uncommon to sometimes have to push a little bit more to get that person to stay at home, especially for direct cremation. But it does happen. I agree. People will say, I don't have a computer. And then they're like, hold up, they're the Amazon guys at my door. So
Or also like leaning on, it doesn't have to be a computer. If you've got any kind of device, a tablet, a cell phone, you can sign the
Mhm.
documents from your cell phone, because you can sign all the parting pro documents from your cell phone. You can fill out the vitals from your cell phone. You can go through the store on your cell phone. So yeah, I agree. We can gently push back a little bit, and I promise that it's easy. If you do have to go through the vitals on the phone with somebody, that's really easy to do too, because you can have it open on your end and do that, and walk them through, and even show them how easy it is. So yeah, that's great. And
Ashley,
then Eileen, go ahead.
sorry. I was also going to add, if they're crunched on time and they don't have time to go through the vitals, they just want to get information as to like what packages are included. And maybe they want like a simple invoice just to see on their end. So I would advise like utilize your invoice templates and just state, hey, if you don't have time to go through our online arranger, this is an invoice that I can send over to you. You don't have to pay now, but you can look at the included items that are in that package and see if that fits your needs. That way you can utilize Party Pro to gain their information and send that invoice over. And you don't necessarily need to worry about them having to walk through the online arranger to get to the price information.
Mhm. That's a really good point. Um, yeah, you could certainly just use an invoice and let them know you're sending them over a quote. And then they can have that information to go off of. And at least we've started that conversation about and we've been able to get their email address so that you can do a follow-up and things.
And then Eileen in the chat, she said that on the second call, they didn't offer unnecessary information that the caller didn't need. She says some people want all the details, but many do not.
Mhm.
That's true. We have
That's true.
listened to calls where someone has called and asked about direct cremation, and the staff starts talking about their amazing facilities and their beautiful chapel, etc. That is probably an example of maybe someone going into from education to now we're looking at being a little bit salesy. So you do want to give information that you think will be really general to what they need. And then if they give you cues, like Ashley said, like my grandfather was a veteran, then you could mention, oh, well, when you go through the online store, you'll see that we have a amazing folded flag as a keepsake. And a lot of our loved ones who have people who served in the military love to have that as a tribute. That's kind of an inroad. And again, that falls under educating instead of being salesy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Okay. So now that we've kind of gone through some examples, we're going to get into the second conversation. And so when I talk about the second conversation, what I'm referring to is the follow-up call initiated by the funeral home a day or so after talking with the price shopper. So in one of the examples we just heard, that was a price shopper. They needed to get off the phone. If I was a funeral director and I came in the next day, assuming I had been able to get information to send them a proposal email, and I log in and they haven't done anything, that's a really good cue that I can follow up with that family today to see if they have any other questions. And again, it's not to be pushy or salesy, it's to build some more of that rapport and build some more of that trust, that connection. So all of the rules with the first conversation still apply, right? We're still going to use language of care. We're still going to try and build a connection. We're going to reach out, kind of let the family know that we're still here. If they've got any questions that we weren't able to address yesterday, do they need any more information? We work with several funeral homes that swear by the second call, meaning that if they've talked to a family one day, they come in the next day and there's no arrangements made yet, it's in their routine that they're going to call that family back. Say, hey, Susan, I know we talked briefly yesterday, just wanted to follow up. Did you have any other questions? Are there any other thoughts that you had overnight that we didn't get to talk about yesterday? Kind of just framing it that way of how else can I help you? And then we're again building that rapport that inevitably will lead to some more conversation, probably some more questions, and definitely more connection. So I think that follow up also shows them that you remembered them. They're again a person that's dealing with something. They're not just another case. We got to stay out of that robot mode. And it's your it's your opportunity to continue that conversation with them. And then I think examples are helpful, especially if things are new. If we've never done a second call before or a follow-up, I think some things that we could easily just say, again, simplicity is the key. These do not have to be elaborate. It's simple. So, hi, I just wanted to check in. I've been thinking about your family. If you have any questions or need to talk through anything, I'm here. So I would say, even if you have to leave a voicemail, do it, because you've called and you've checked back in. Are they going to get the proposal email that you sent? Yes. Is there a chance that they've been calling other funeral homes and they're going to get some kind of communication from that funeral home? Yes. Is there a chance that every single funeral home they talk to is going to call them back? No. You want to be the different one, right? You want to be the one that's going to call that family back and you want to follow up. So as simple as, I just wanted to follow up on our conversation from the other day. No rush, just checking to see if anything that came up that I can help with. These decisions can be really hard. I completely understand. I'll be here whenever the time feels right. If you do have any other questions. This is also something we've seen people do with at needs, especially because the arrangements need to be made quicker, but with any type, whether it's imminent or a pre-need, your follow-up, your lead time might be different. If it's a pre-need, you might not call the next day, you might call after a week or something like that. But setting that task for you to go ahead and do, I think is still a good idea, so that you can do that follow-up and continue that connection. Anything else to add, Andre or Jan, or anybody else?
Another benefit to a second call, and it's not always the best outcome, but it can still be resourceful, is if for some reason they have already selected another provider, you can ask them who that is. So I know from doing second follow-up calls, when I worked in the funeral home, I was more on the marketing side, but I did meet with families. My boss had an understanding of who his competitors were. But when we would do that second follow-up call, we found out that there was an actual competitor that was not even on his radar at all that he was losing business to. And so we were able to do a little bit more research on that provider, find out different things that they had that could have been an advantage over ours, or wasn't an advantage, but we weren't explaining something well enough. And so it seemed like it was an advantage. So don't be afraid when you're doing that second call. If they say, oh, we already went with someone, just say, oh, what provider did you decide to go with? Or what colleague, I like to use that word, what colleague of mine did you decide to go with? And then they will say what that is. And that's important information for you to be able to have as well.
It's good feedback for sure to understand where you may be I don't want to say falling short, but maybe where other providers are getting an advantage somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's good information to have for sure. I see Barry's comment. What about a follow-up like 30 days later after a price shopper called and you sent them a parting pro invitation? There was no death. They were just getting their ducks in a row.
Yeah, that would work probably for a pre-need
Mhm.
situation, or if
Yeah.
they kind of told you it was imminent, like maybe someone just got put in hospice, because we've seen cases, I'm sure you guys all have, where someone was supposed to pass in 2 weeks and 6 weeks later, they're still with us. So
Mhm.
absolutely, but I do think
Mhm.
that perhaps in that follow-up, you may want to mention your pre-need options as well.
Mhm.
Just in case they have selected another provider, they could still go with you for a pre-need, or maybe they didn't know that was an option. I would make it a little bit more broad as far as what services you can offer in general, instead of narrowing in on what that original call was. Because 30 days for at need, I would say that's really long.
Mhm.
We have seen that most of the families for at need are making a decision within usually about 8 hours after calls. So even sometimes doing the second call the next day for at need might be too late. You might want to call them before you leave for the day if
Mhm.
you can. But imminent, it's a little bit longer window. And then, of course, pre needs 30 days, I think, is totally okay for a follow up.
Mhm.
Yeah, and this is where you can utilize Parting Pro as well. In your email templates, you can set up that follow-up interval. So if you go into your settings and you go over to your email templates for those pre-need, at-need, and imminence, and if you scroll down, there's that follow-up interval that you could set for after 1 day, after 7 days, and you can actually customize that email too. So depending on how you want to reward your funeral home's verbiage, you can absolutely do that rather than having to call if you don't have the time to do so.
For sure. Yeah. So that leads us exactly into our next topic here, which is how you can utilize Parting Pro to kind of help with your conversations and your follow-up. So I would say for every case, every family that you talk to, you want to create a case. So there's a little video just playing on the screen with no volume that's just showing you the steps here. So creating a case for that price shopper, um, getting their phone number and their email. I know we are in the habit, especially of really emphasizing you need that email address because you want to be able to send that proposal email, but asking for a phone number is also good practice so that you can do that follow-up call. You'll send their proposal email. And then once you've sent their proposal email, the other thing that I would suggest you do is that you set yourself a follow-up reminder. So you go into your tasks, and if you don't have it in a template already, to follow up on the proposal email, that you add yourself a task to follow up on that proposal email and set it as a high priority so it shows up in your cases list. And then I would also go into the notes and make yourself some notes about that call. So that you remember, right? Again, you're talking to a lot of people every day, but go in and note where their loved one is. What did they tell you? Did they tell you that they're a veteran, they're at the VA hospital? What information do you have from that phone call that you can use when you call them back tomorrow? Hey, Susan, I just wanted to follow up with this. And you have that information. And Barry, yes, you would do this in Parting Pro. So you would log into Parting Pro and start a case. For that caller. That way you've got the case and information to do that with. And this is something, if this is new to you and you want to schedule some time to walk through this with one of us or get some things in order for your processes, we'd be happy as a team to help you with that too. So when we send out this recording. We'll send out a schedule link too. If anybody wants to schedule some training or follow up on this topic, we'd be happy to do that as well. But I think being able to use Parting Pro in this way, especially number one, send that proposal email so that they can get the pricing information that they need. Set your follow-up reminder so you can remember the next day to do that follow-up call, and then just making a note because things get busy. This is really helpful in a way that you can leverage kind of the tools that are already at your disposal here. I want to have a few minutes for questions, so I'm going to get through this next slide, but these are just our key takeaways: is that you want to connect with care. You want to ask and listen with intentionality, and you want to log the call and follow up with the family. So that's kind of the base for today: connect, act and listen, log and follow up. So I know we're getting close to our time here.
Did you mean that to make an acronym of call?
Oh, I didn't. Look at that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know we've got a couple minutes left. So if there are any questions, or if somebody wants to share what has worked well for you or what is
Well,
working
Barry
well
has a
for you.
question.
Okay.
He wants to know if we can actually show really quickly how he can adjust those reminders in his settings. I don't know if you have a demo dashboard open
Sure.
or something
Yeah.
that you can show and share your screen.
Yes, I can absolutely get that set up. Let me stop sharing for a second and get that
And then while Ashley's doing that, like I said, does anybody have any questions? You can put it in the chat if you don't feel comfortable speaking out about any things that you learned today that maybe you didn't know before, or things that you may have become desensitized on, that this is letting you feel that you need to tighten it up a little bit. Any feedback would be great.
Okay. Can you see my screen okay?
It hasn't shown your screen yet. Now we can see.
You see now? Okay. So you wanted to see the follow-up email, Barry, I think. So
The reminders that he can edit.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So for that, I'm going to go into settings. So I'm just going to go up to where you'll go, where your name is, and go into settings. And then you've got all of your different emails here. So we would be talking about a proposal email. So for example, we're going to go into our @need email, and we're going to hit the little pencil icon. Now this first window that opens up is going to allow you to edit the actual proposal email that you're going to send. So this is your template. Now, if you scroll all the way to the bottom here, you've got reminder emails. So in these reminders, you've got intervals. So this one is set to send after 8 hours. And now if you want to edit this, you're going to again click your little pencil icon, and this is going to allow you to edit the email that's the family is getting after 8 hours. So you can edit what it says here, but you can also change the frequency and the interval. So if you wanted an email to send after 4 hours, or if you wanted it to send after 24 hours, you can do that. You can repeat them, or you can set them to be completely individual. And then you can do hours, days, weeks, and months. So for your example, if in the, let's say pre-need, you wanted an email to go 30 days out, you could set that up right here. So they're going to get that automatic email. Now, my only thing with this is I would still do a follow-up call, because you want to do that like a little extra step. The emails are going to be great, and they're definitely a valuable tool. But for @needs, I would definitely suggest you still do a phone call. Did that show you what you needed, Barry?
I think I saw him mouth yes. So I think we're good. He's on mute.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Cool. Okay. And since we're
Any
getting
other questions?
yeah, any other questions? We're happy to ask. We're happy to go over any more questions. We've got one final questionnaire. If you guys don't mind taking a minute to give us some feedback to see if this was helpful for you. It's in the chat. It's helpful for us to understand how you guys like to learn, if this setting is helpful for you, if you like reading information, and just what would be helpful for you to know about in the future. So if you don't mind taking a moment, that would be great. We do have a couple more minutes, so if anybody else has questions that you wanted to review, we're happy to take a couple minutes to do that as well. I think one of the questions in the survey too is if something like this would be helpful for the rest of your team. We can figure out maybe how to do that if you feel like this would be a helpful thing for the rest of your team to know about. You can tell us that as well.
Yeah, Jan and myself and Ashley were always willing to do team coaching sessions. That way you can have your team around the table. They can talk about some of the points that were brought up today of, oh, I don't want to feel salesy. What do you recommend? Or I get nervous. And we can work through, and we can even help create very small, basic scripts that you can have your team kind of learn. I always found it helpful to have at least a basic script that I kind of had memorized, and then I could go off of it when I needed to. But if I was losing control of the conversation, it was a great way for me to be able to reel it back in. So I do recommend team members have a management approved script that they're required to learn. So at least that you can get some kind of uniformity going on, because that's another thing that we observed. There would be like some awesome rock star staff that would handle phones great, and then another team member would handle a phone completely different. And if you could get consistency among your team members, that's very beneficial to your families.
For sure. For sure. Okay, well, we are at time, so we will let everybody go. We know you got busy days and things to do, but we appreciate you attending today and for your participation. And let us know if there's anything you need in the future. We'll have an email with this recording tomorrow and some schedule links if needed, okay? All right. Bye, everybody.